everybody. I'm Laura Trump coming to you from my home in New York. If you believe in the promise of America, then you believe we are about to come back stronger than ever. Joining me is actor and Fox News guest host, Dean Cain. Dean, welcome to the show. Thank you for being with us.
I'm honored to be here, Laura. Thank you so much.
I feel like you have so many more accolades than that. Football player, Superman, like we could just go on and on all day. After 2 months of this crisis, Dean, can you imagine anyone better equipped to restore the promise of America than Donald Trump?
I have full and complete faith in the president getting America back up and running. Maybe it's because he thinks outside the box, maybe because he's not a career politician, that I think he is uniquely equipped to do this. I'm listening to the chatter among people. Whether it's my law enforcement friends, because I'm a reserve police officer, whether it's my military friends, or whether everyday Americans, and people are frustrated by the shutdown. They're frustrated by the way the Democrats are trying to politicize it, and they're anxious and excited to get back to work, while of course being careful. But Americans are ready to go, and I think the president has a certain innate feel, and he can feel what everyone's sort of saying behind closed doors, unless of course they're celebrating the shutdown because they think it might hurt him politically, which incredibly, I think Democrats are doing that quite a bit, politicizing this and sticking so many weird things in these bills to help, the coronavirus relief. It's unreal. So I think the president is uniquely situated to do a heck of a job. And I think he's done as good a job as anybody could possibly do under the circumstances. Nobody knows the answers, not even medical professionals, 100%. I think he's done a fantastic job, and I really have great faith in him continuing forward.
Yeah, you're right. The president does have some sort of really unique ability to feel these things out. And he said, Dean, from the beginning, the cure cannot be worse than the virus itself. And I think that's what we're talking about as we're starting to try and get back to our sense of normal across the country. But you just brought up a good point. I wanted to get your thoughts about the way that Democrats take Americans for granted by exploiting this crisis. I mean, we know this is probably good for Joe Biden because he's able to hide out in the basement. He's not on stage somewhere making big gaffes. But they are putting really crazy far left ideals. They're trying to plug it into these bills. What are your thoughts on the way that they've conducted themselves?
Well, I think it's going to, for everyday regular Americans who probably don't pay attention to the way bills are formed and put together, this is what the political process is like, unfortunately, in America. That when a bill comes in, if it's a bill about helping steel workers, okay, they're going to stick 75 different things in that, the pork things and so on and so forth. People don't understand how that works. Now I think Americans are seeing it happen because it's the only thing we're paying attention to, and they're looking like, why does there have to be, there's what, 1,815 pages of legislation for this third coronavirus relief bill. But the thing is, it's filled, 1,815 pages. It's massive. And they're putting all sorts of pork inside it. And people get it that it doesn't make sense. And I think it's really going to hurt the Democrats in November because it's out there and they're sort of exposed. It's like, why would you put $25 million into the Kennedy Center? And it doesn't make sense to everyday Americans when, they're going to survive. What about these businesses that are going under? So I think it's going to really hurt the Democrats. I think it's obvious what they're doing. And it's crazy. And I've said this before, and I guess it's kind of cliche. If President Trump cured cancer, people would be screaming that he put oncologists out of work. And that's the craziness about it. So whatever he does is going to be deemed as wrong by the mainstream media. But I think regular, everyday Americans get that he's doing the best he can and doing a heck of a job, and as good as anybody could possibly do, maybe a heck of a lot better.
Yeah, I think you're right. And we're just specifically talking about the coronavirus situation. But Dean, when you look at what Donald Trump was able to do in his first 3 years in office. Prior to coronavirus, we saw historic numbers for Donald Trump, whether we're talking about the historically low unemployment numbers, historic highs in the stock market, a record number of jobs, over 7 million new jobs created in this country. Everybody felt this economic boom, and why what Donald Trump and his administration were able to do was so successful in this country. With everything he had against him, it's almost astonishing he was able to accomplish anything from the beginning. And now we know that some of what was against him, this idea, this ridiculous idea, Dean, of Russia collusion, which we all knew was a farce from the beginning, now we have more evidence coming out every single day as to just how bad this was, as to how high it went within the government. You starred in a stage show called FBI Lovebirds Undercovers. What is your reaction to the latest revelations on the absolute witch hunt against President Donald Trump?
Well, I called it a witch hunt from the very beginning. I'm not saying I was before the president. I'm sure he said it first, but it looked like a witch hunt from the very beginning. It didn't make any sense to me. The idea that they were colluding with Russia was just ridiculous. And one thing I do love is that video is forever now.
Yep.
And the things people say on Twitter and the things they say when they're guests on talk shows, that stuff exists forever. And that's going to fly back in a lot of people's faces. It's happening right now. I think, having played Peter Strzok and been exposed to a lot of his text messages and watched him and paying attention to him, I think he thought he was doing the right thing. I think he thought he was being a super American, if you will, and he was doing the exact opposite. They were flouting the law. I'm really happy to see that, DNI Grinnell, acting DNI Grinnell, put out all the names of the unmaskers, and all this stuff is unraveling now like I always expected and hoped it would. It's just terrifying that if President Trump had not been elected, all of this would have been swept under the rug, and Clapper and Brennan and Comey would, continue to tout their wonderful, spotless records when they were incredibly corrupt. And was from the top down. It wasn't the everyday FBI agent. And I think it's amazing that it's finally coming through and coming clear in the eyes of everybody in America. Maybe they could go back and watch some of the texts between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Amazing how 30,000 of them have just materialized and other things are coming out all the time. I think there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's been buried. And I think the fact that President Trump's in office, this stuff is going to get unearthed. And listen, November is the election. That's several months away. Between now and then, if the economy recovers and more of this stuff comes out, I can't see how President Trump wins this in anything other than an absolute landslide. And that's what I'm hoping for, because, I don't want to pick on Joe Biden, but Joe Biden, I don't feel comfortable with him becoming president of the United States by any stretch of the imagination. I'd love to see what President Trump can do with 4 more years. He's done unbelievable stuff in the first 3 years with the most ridiculous, incredible opposition from, the whole, the Russia collusion to the impeachment to the 25th Amendment to you name it. And this coronavirus, unprecedented, destroying the economy for now, but we're ready to bounce back. And I believe that we will, and then I think it'll be a landslide in November. That's my hope.
Yeah, well, I have always been a person that believes that ultimately the truth comes out, that I believe to a degree in karma, and that if you're a good person and do good things happen to you, and vice versa. So I think we're seeing a little bit of karmic activity happening right now for the Democrats. And it was really hard, I think, for a lot of us that, obviously for our family, but for folks that worked so hard on the Trump campaign in 2016, to have all of that, just a cloud of suspicion cast over all of us for arguably one of the most grassroots and honest and true campaigns that anyone has probably ever run. We felt like the little engine that could. It is so nice and so refreshing, Dean, to see some of this stuff finally coming out and to feel vindicated to some degree by all of this. I think these people are in for a really bad day. The American people deserve so much better than this. If they could do what they did to Michael Flynn, a general, think about what they could do to every single American citizen in this country. It is a very serious matter. Thank God, to your point, President Trump is in office right now, because you're right, we would never have heard anything about this. People would have just gone on with their lives and never have known anything like this was possible. So thank God for that. Final question for you. I just want to ask, I ask everybody, in the days of quarantine during coronavirus, we're all kind of changing our lives and doing what we can. Anything that you found to help you through this time that you want to share with everybody out there?
You know, for me, and it's unfair because I live in Malibu, California. It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. My son is home from school. He goes to High Point University in North Carolina, which I know is your home state.
Yeah.
And we actually were there at the rally in Charlotte.
Oh, awesome.
Before everything shut down. So he's back here. And so for me, it's been a time to be back home. I travel so much and work so much. Nobody that I know here in California is ill. Nobody's gotten sick. There's very few. I think there's 28 cases in Malibu. So for me, it's been sort of a forced staycation. It's been a time to rest, spend time with my son, my dogs, my family. So, I mean, I'm ready to work. It's cost me a lot in work, but I've also realized how important it is to do those things, to spend the time, take a breath, enjoy my home and my family more than I get to do. So, maybe I'll work a little less when this is all over and things are happening. Probably not, but it's been really nice for me. And I've helped out a lot of people who haven't been able to travel, haven't been able to go to the market, people at risk. My own parents are, at high risk, and so I've been able to help a lot of folks, and that's been nice. But for me, it's really been a time to, bring everything together and sort of be home and reset my battery and reset maybe my values. And you got to remember what's important. And for me, there's nothing more important than my family and their health. And so it's been a great time for that. Unfortunate circumstances, but like I said, I'm ready to get back out there and get things rolling again. Like I think probably the rest of the world, and certainly most of America.
Yeah, that is right. Well, what a nice message to close us out. Dean, thank you so much for being with us today. And we look forward to seeing you back on Fox News sometime soon, whenever we can all work and travel again. Until that time, enjoy your family. And thank you so much for being with us.
Lord, thank you very much.
Neither crisis nor corruption by Democrats will prevent Donald Trump from restoring the promise of America very soon. That's the real news for today. If you'd like to get involved with Team Trump, go to DonaldJTrump.com or download the official Trump 2020 app from the App Store on your iPhone or from the Google Play Store on Android. I'm Laura Trump, coming to you from my home in New York. Thanks for joining us, everybody.